So you need a garage, huh? Well, so did we. So we decided to build our own. And today I'm going to share with you some of the things that we learned when we were doing that. So guys, welcome back to Peaks Peak Hobby Homestead. If you're new to the channel, I'm Lucas, and today we're going to talk to you about the garage that me and my son Cameron built. Guys, I want to tell you right out of the gate, as I share some of my tips and things that I wanted to share about our garage, I'm going to forget a lot of things. So be sure and jump down in the comments, things you think of that made your garage better, made you happy with your garage. Share those. That way other people can learn and they can incorporate those into their own build. The garage that we built is a 28 by 36 by 12 foot tall post frame garage. And there are pluses and minuses to all the decisions that we made in this build. Some of them had to do with finances and budget. Some of them had to do with our abilities. And some of them had to do with availability of materials. So we're going to talk today about the choices that we made and why we made them. And maybe some things that you want to avoid if you're going to DIY your own dream garage. So the first thing I wanted to talk about is that we went with the post frame style of construction. Now, if you've watched my time-lapse video of the build, you know that video got a lot of views. And it also got a lot of comments about why on earth would you bury posts in dirt? And that's because it's being viewed by people all over the world and in all different climates and with access to all kinds of different building materials. Post frame construction in our part of the country is pretty common because it's affordable, it's durable, and it's something that's a simple style of structure that just about anyone can build. The posts that we used are a laminated, treated posts that are rated for 30 years. Now that doesn't mean they're necessarily going to last 30 years in the ground. It depends on the moisture content in the soil and the way that you put those in the ground. But I can tell you that I've been involved in the building of this style of building since I was about 7 years old. I remember building the first one of these buildings with my dad. I probably didn't do much, but I remember being there and being a part of it. And that was over 35 years ago. And that building is still standing strong, perfectly fine. We built several more throughout my lifetime, and I haven't known of any issues, haven't had to have any posts replaced, any kind of problems whatsoever. That being said, if you were to have a problem with a post rotting out, there are also ways to fix that, ways to make plates to mount it to your concrete floor, ways to just replace the post completely. They're not necessarily easy. We don't want to have to do that, but it can be done. So the style of construction that we went with is one that I was comfortable with, one that I feel like gives you the most for your money, and one that I was capable of building with the resources and the tools that I had available to do it. As far as the dimensions of our shop, we considered building it smaller, but everyone tells you go as large as you possibly can within your budget and within the space that you have to put it in, because it will never be big enough. And they're exactly right. So we filled up the space that we had to build this shop. We already have times when we feel like we're cramped in here because we've got it full of projects. Now, it's fantastic, we love it, it works, but the one thing that I would suggest is if you plan on working on cars in your shop, I was initially going to build this garage 24 feet deep, but it would not have been deep enough, especially with the lift. When I bring my 3/4 ton diesel truck in here and put it on the lift, I am inches from the door when I center the truck on the lift the way that it needs to be centered. And it leaves you just enough space to walk in front of your truck and get to your toolboxes. Now, you could get rid of the toolboxes here and gain a couple more feet in front of it, but it gives you basically no room for error. So go at least 28 feet deep if you plan on working on cars. That would be my suggestion for dimensions. The next suggestion I have is we built our ceiling height. The kit that we bought was for a 12-foot ceiling. I knew the lift I was ordering needed 12'1" of clearance. I put my rafters on to where when the final grade of concrete was put in, we would have 12'3", and it was barely enough. We had trouble assembling the lift. We got it together, but it's tight against the ceiling, and we had no margin for error there. So make sure you plan ahead with your ceiling height. Make sure it's going to fit the things that you want to accommodate. Another aspect of your building that you want to consider is insulation. Different parts of the world, different parts of the country are going to have different climates, so you have different needs in terms of insulation. here in Eastern Kentucky, we get some cold weather, we get some hot weather, and good insulation would be nice. And what I really wanted was spray foam insulation, but I just couldn't afford it. So we went with polyfoam insulation board, and we only went with the thin stuff. It's like 1/2 inch thick polyfoam board that you can buy at Lowe's for $7 or $8 a sheet, probably more now. But we were able to put that on the walls and the ceiling and give us a small amount of insulation, make it look halfway decent. And so it was a decent option for us. I don't regret doing it, but I would say insulate it the best that you can afford to insulate it, because in the wintertime, we have trouble getting her really nice and warm and comfortable in here. We have to run several heaters. So that's something we may down the road want to upgrade. But for right now, we've gotten by with polyfoam insulation board. Your concrete, especially if you're going to work on cars and things, it needs to be sealed. So you need to think about what kind of coating you're going to put on your floor. Now, there are all kinds of options out there, and the option that I went with as far as durability goes, it's been pretty decent. We've been in this shop for a year now, and the surface has held up well. The color we went with, which I'm going to completely throw my son under the bus and say he went with white because Adam LZ had white floors in his shop and he thought it was awesome and we should have white floors in our shop. I knew it was a terrible idea because we aren't keeping show vehicles in here and just showing things off. We work in our garage. So it stayed white for about a week, and it looks like what you would expect a white garage floor to look like if people use the garage. And we pressure washed the floor and cleaned it up, but it doesn't matter. It's stained and it's no longer white, and that is what it is. But you can't blame all of that on the surface finish that we went with, which was epoxy seal. It took way more coats than advertised, so I wasn't just totally thrilled with the product, but overall, the floor coating is holding up well. It seals the concrete to where it doesn't soak up a lot of oil and things like that. So it's protecting the concrete, I'll say that, but think about your floor coating and what you're gonna do to seal your floor. If I had it to do over again, I would use a true epoxy coated floor. I would go with a medium to dark gray with flecks in it so that it kind of hides some of the dirt and stains and all of those things. We didn't do that. We've got what we've got. It's okay. And as far as the floors go, man, I'm really tore up about all the stains on the floor. I mean, you know, people ought to take care of a garage floor and not let it get stains on it. And I have no idea how that got there. One thing about electrical in the shop that I wanted to mention is try to think ahead and plan ahead for what type of equipment you're going to be running in your shop, because I put in just a couple of 220 outlets for me to run a welder off of, but I didn't run them all the way to the other side of the shop. And so I've kind of run into times when I needed my welder in the third bay over here, and I don't have a 220 outlet over there. Now that's partly to do with the fact that a roll of wire to cover 30 amps at 220 is pretty expensive, and I just didn't have the money to do it at the time, so we've decided to forego the extra outlets for 220 on the other side of the garage. But I miss those. I wish I had them there. So you want to try to plan ahead for those things and make sure you have it. Another suggestion I wanted to just throw out there is I kind of had this old school mindset that I needed a big air compressor and air drops throughout the shop so that we could plug in air hoses here and there and run our air tools. But I'll be honest with you, we kind of went overkill with that. It was completely unnecessary for us to actually run piping throughout the garage for all the different hoses, when we could have just as easily had one hose reel with a 50-foot hose that would reach everywhere inside the shop and be done with it. And actually somebody commented that on one of my air hose install videos. I just didn't think of it because I had it in my mind that I needed to plumb the building for some air lines. It's just kind of what I've always envisioned in a shop, and so that's what I did. But it was overkill. The other thing is, more and more we're getting away from air tools and using battery powered tools anyway. So the use of air tools is just not as needed as it was years ago. So kind of keep that in mind when you're planning your shop. If you don't have a huge need for all the air tools to be run in every bay of the garage, then don't waste the money on plumbing it all out to have airdrops in every bay. Seems like common sense, but sometimes those things sail right over my head. Now, to talk about lighting, we went with cheap, generic LED lighting from Amazon because it was extremely affordable, and 1 year in, all of them except one bulb are still working. We put 6 of the kind of fan-shaped LED light bulbs into regular light bulb sockets. And then we put 12 4-foot LED light bars on the ceiling as well. We wired it up with outlets on the ceiling so that we could plug those in, and we put those outlets on a switch so that we could try different lighting if we needed to or whatever. But we have good lighting in here. You're able to work on cars and see what you're doing. We hoped that the white floor would help working underneath the cars in reflective lighting, but it's dirty. That is not really making any difference anymore. But good lighting is extremely important in a shop. Invest in good, bright LED lights for sure. And I'll put links down in the description to the type of lighting that we use because, like I said, we're a year in, they're holding up well. So I'm happy with the lights that we chose. And if you're interested, you can check those out in the link below. Another very important aspect of every garage is workbenches. And you know, if you're like me, you can't afford to just go out and buy the fanciest workbench setups and $30,000 toolboxes and all the stuff that's out there available. You kind of got to do things on a budget. And so I used a lot of used cabinets and built some benches and just did things to make it work for us. And so we built in a corner section here with some cabinets and put some shelving up above to put some tools on. And then we picked up some cheap Harbor Freight toolboxes, which we've been real happy with. I think I got this one when I got married like years and years ago, I don't know, been married a long time. I'm gonna be in trouble when my wife watches this. But each of the boys have toolboxes, and I got a toolbox there. And then a friend of mine redid their kitchen, and they had old cabinets that I just painted black, painted the handles blue to make them look more like garage cabinets, and made another workbench for this bay over here. That worked out really well. But you know, you can get creative and save yourself some money when you're working on your garage and getting it set up the way you want, because if you're like me, you kind of want to save that money to put into your projects that you're building that you may or may not ever get done. You also want to think about the durability of your building where you're building it, because we live in an area that experiences some high winds at times, but our particular location where we built our shop is right up against a hillside, and the prevailing winds are blocked by trees on one side and the hillside behind us, which makes it to where our building doesn't endure extreme winds very much. That being said, we've had several major windstorms in the year since this building was built. We lost some great big trees. We had those storms go through and had no issues at all with the building. Some neighbors had metal blowing off of their barns, and ours held in there just fine. So I feel very good about the durability of the construction style that we went with, and I think that barring unforeseen circumstances, it will be standing for many years to come. And so I say that to kind of bring a little bit of attention to this post-frame style of construction, because I was actually surprised how many people had never seen anything like it. They couldn't believe that we were putting posts in the ground, and they complained about that sort of thing. But I'll be honest with you, if you don't like that or you're not comfortable with that, there are also plenty of other options to build this style of building without putting wood down in the dirt. They make some post mounting bases that you anchor down in concrete, and it's like rebar with a mount to where you set those in your concrete in a hole, and then you bolt your posts to those mounting bases. They're extremely durable, and they do away with the whole worry of having wood below ground level. And to be honest, if I had it to do over again, I might go with that. Just because you never know. You know, we've got a lot of groundwater down at the base of this hill. So I would say if any building is ever going to experience problems with the treated posts in the ground, it would be this one, because we've got some water below grade in this area. Now, I don't see any issues so far, and I don't really expect to, but to take all of that worry away, you can look into other options and coating those posts with a coating before you put them in the ground or put them in concrete. But you can also buy those bases, and that takes all of that worry away. The other thing about this type of construction is it looks kind of utility when you put siding on the outside that is metal roofing material, but I kind of like that look, and it's very affordable and very quick to put together. But you can build this style of building and sheet it with wood and put regular siding on it and, you know, make it look like the same style of stick-built construction that you see in residential neighborhoods. That can be done, and it's no big deal, and it doesn't add a whole lot of cost to the structure. But I personally have I'm kind of farm oriented. We're out on a farm. We've got our homestead here, and so I like the look of a metal building. So that's what we chose to go with, and I'm perfectly happy with that. So guys, these are just a few of the things that were on my mind lately about our building and the things that we've thought about our shop since we built it. There are plenty more things that could be said about building dream garages, and you may see more videos like this out of me in the future, because I always kind of have these things going through my mind, and I like to talk about them and hopefully share tips that are going to help other people make good decisions that will fit what they're trying to accomplish. That's all we're setting out to do here, is share this information so other people can take what they want from it and make it fit what they're trying to accomplish. I hope that worked out for you. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I appreciate y'all watching. Y'all have a good day.